Hello, my name's Keith Johnson. Several years ago, I made a podcast which in iTunes is called Shakespeare's Language and More. The idea was that each episode should start off with some aspect of Shakespeare's language, usually a word that he uses, but that discussion should develop into something more general to do with language in general or about the usage of English today. I thought that during lockdown I'd do a version for YouTube, and I've changed the name to In and Around Shakespeare's Language. This is the first episode. The word that starts the discussion off is bully, and then we go on to look at beliefs about word origins. I hope you enjoy it. In A Midsummer Night's Dream, Flute the bellows mender addresses Bottom the weaver as sweet bully Bottom. This sounds odd to us today. Sweet and bully aren't words which really go together. A bully is a very unpleasant thing. There's nothing at all sweet about it. It's true that there is one expression we use in modern English which does suggest something nice, the phrase bully for you, which means good for you or well done. But all in all, it looks as if bully is one of those many words which has, with time, changed its meaning for the worse. It may have been something nice in Shakespeare's time, but it certainly isn't today. Shakespeare uses the word bully quite a few times. Another example where it clearly means something pleasant is when, in Henry V, the ruffian Pistol says of the king, "I love the lovely bully." There's one character, the host of the Garter Inn in The Merry Wives of Windsor, who uses the word a lot. In fact, it's a kind of linguistic signature for him. At one point, he calls Falstaff Bully Hercules, and a few lines later, Bully Hector. And he uses the phrase bully rook several times. A rook is a cheat. Think of our modern verb to rook. At another point, he calls the French doctor Caius a bully stale. Stale meant dupe. Pistol and the host could be described as members of the drinking classes, and bully sounds just like the way to address a fellow drinker in a pub. An Elizabethan version of squire, perhaps. As for today, the word bully has three separate meanings. Bully beef is tinned beef, and the word is probably a corruption of the French bouilli, meaning boiled meat. Think bouillon. There's also a sporting usage, most common in the verb bully off, used in hockey when the ball is put into play. But today's main meaning is someone who intimidates the weak. However, it did start life as a term of endearment, and some of that endearment is there in Shakespeare's uses. The word is associated with the Dutch word boy, once used to mean lover, and there's also a word in German, though not used nowadays, Buhler, also meaning lover. How did the word change so dramatically from nice to nasty? The path seems to have been from lover via good chap to blusterer, nasty creeping in here, and so to our modern intimidator of the weak. For words, changes like this are quite common. In fact, the linguist Stephen Ullman says that pejorative changes in word meaning are a symptom of a pessimistic streak in the human mind. One interesting route by which words go downhill is through being euphemisms. An example is the word undertaker. In Shakespeare's day, it meant someone who takes on a task. So when Sir Toby Belch in Twelfth Night tells Antonio, "If you be an undertaker, I am for you," what he is saying is, if you take on the task, I'm on your side. At the beginning of the 18th century, the modern sense of someone who arranges funerals came into use, but as a euphemism. Today it has passed from being a euphemism to become the regular way of describing the funeral arranger. Association of ideas is another path to pejorative meaning change. In Latin, the word captivus meant prisoner. From this origin, it has come to mean many unpleasant things. The related Italian word cattivo means bad. The English caitiff originally meant a prisoner, but by Shakespeare's day was used in the sense of villain. In Measure for Measure, Constable Elbow says, "O thou caitiff, O thou varlet, O thou wicked Hannibal." Elbow, like others of his profession in Shakespeare, has trouble with words. For Hannibal, read cannibal. Association of ideas may indeed have been the downfall of bully. It's possible that a strong connection was built up in the public mind between bully and bull. Bulls are, for many, aggressive animals, and you can easily imagine that they are indeed bullies in our modern sense. But there is no clear derivational connection between bull and bully. This doesn't matter, because when it comes to determining a word's meaning, and even its form, as we shall hear in a moment, linguistic roots are not nearly as important as folk etymology, where people think a word has come from. Etymology is the study of word origins. But what we are talking about here isn't really etymology at all. It's etymythology. People love to speculate, often wildly, about the origins of words, and they invariably present their speculations as indisputable facts. For example, in Britain, where it's a problem, binge drinking is often a topic of debate. What causes it? How it can best be handled? Not surprising, then, that the origin of the word binge should sometimes come up for discussion. Thus, in February 2012, a letter to the Guardian newspaper stated as fact an etymological view which surfaces regularly. It is that the word comes from the name of the Belgian village of Binche, where a lively festival, the Carnival of Binche, takes place every Shrove Tuesday, and doubtless leads to much, binging. But this derivation is not likely at all, and there is another much more plausible one. The word is found in a number of British dialects, in Yorkshire, Lincolnshire and the Midlands. A binge was a corn bin, which is where the bin part of the word comes from, and to binge meant to soak. The verb was particularly used with reference to leaky wooden vessels, which were soaked in water to make them swell and close the leaks. An 1890 informant gives a good example of this. "Chuck that there bucket into the pond," he says, "and let it binge." A binging was a soaking or drenching. Mistaken derivations like the binge one are very common. People would often rather invent some apparently meaningful origin for a word than accept what is frequently the truth, that words are often just arbitrary collections of sounds. Sometimes etymologies actually influence the form a word takes. An example is crayfish. This is from the Middle English crevasse, similar to the modern French word for a crayfish, écrevisse. The crève part of the Middle English word is associated with our crab. But more interesting is the vis ending. Because écrevisse was a kind of fish, people thought that this vis part was a corruption of the word fish. So fish it became. Then there's shamefaced. Shakespeare uses the word once in Richard III when the second murderer talks about a blushing, shamefaced spirit that mutinies in a man's bosom. But the original word was shamefast, and indeed this form carried on after Shakespeare's time. The fast part meant firmly fixed in place, as in our word steadfast, and in the expression stuck fast. But faced seemed to fit the word's meaning very well. A person who was full of shame would show it in their face. So shamefast turned into shamefaced. Then finally there is penthouse. Shakespeare uses the word several times. In The Merchant of Venice, Gratiano and Salerio have arranged to meet their friend Lorenzo close to Shylock's house. When they arrive, Gratiano says, "This is the penthouse under which Lorenzo desired us to make stand." This penthouse would be a sloping roof or a lean-to structure alongside Shylock's house. But the word's origins have nothing to do with the word house. It comes from the Latin appendicium, meaning an attached building or a lean-to. The word is associated with our appendix. In Middle English, the form was pentis. Folk etymology associated this with pent, still the French word meaning slope, pont, plus is, which sounds a bit like house. So the word changed from pentis to penthouse, sloping house. The word is also used in Macbeth, where the first witch says, "I will drain him dry as hay. Sleep shall neither night nor day hang upon his penthouse lid." She means eyelid. The image well captures the sloping roof meaning of the word. It also vividly describes what an eyelid is like. Today the word refers to a luxurious roof-level flat. Where does this meaning come from? Well, it's certainly American, and the Oxford English Dictionary's first citation is 1892. It's from the Real Estate Records and Builders Guide, dated the 3rd of December, and it makes interesting reading. It says, "It would puzzle many of our readers to know what is meant by a penthouse. It is the name given to an aerial extension of a building by constructing a habitation for a janitor and his family on the roof." It seems that in this early usage, the person who lived high up and got the good views was not the affluent owner, but the janitor. Bully for him. Well, that's it. Please keep your eyes open for the second episode. The word there is discanded, and the general topic is the death of words.